Today we're diving into something essential for everyday German: Numbers. Willkommen zur 6. Lektion unseres A1 Deutschkurses. In this lesson, you'll learn how to count from 0 to 99, and even into the hundreds and thousands. These numbers will be so useful for things like telling time, discussing dates, and sharing important details. Stick around until the end for a practice session to test what you've learned. Let's get started with the basics. Los geht's! For starters, we'll learn the numbers from 0 to 20. We've divided them into two groups. In the first group, we have the numbers from 0 to 12. And they are important because you'll use them frequently in everyday life. And they're the base for forming larger numbers later on. Unfortunately, there's no specific pattern for these, so you'll need to memorize them. Let's go over them slowly, and you can repeat after me. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Great job. These numbers need to be memorized, but don't worry. Practice will make perfect. Now, let's move on to the numbers from 13 to 19. Luckily, there's a pattern here that will make it easier to learn them. You just take the numbers from 3 to 9 and add 10, which means 10. So for example, 13 will be 3 plus 10, 13, and so on. As you can see, the pattern stays consistent, except for 16 and 17, where the ending changes slightly. In 16, the S from sex is dropped, and in 17, the N from sieben is also removed. This change is made for easier pronunciation. Let's practice these numbers together. I'll say each one, and you can repeat after me. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Now that we've covered the basic numbers, let's move on to numbers from 20 to 99. We'll divide this part into two sections. First, we'll look at the tens, 20, 30, 40, etc. And then, we'll move on to how to form the numbers from 21 to 29. First, let's start with the tens. In German, numbers like 20, 30, and 40 follow a consistent pattern, just like the numbers from 13 to 19. The only difference is that we replace the 10 ending with sich to form these numbers. However, there are two exceptions to keep in mind. As you can see, most tens follow sich pattern, except for 30, which uses sich, 30. Additionally, for 70, the spelling of sieben changes slightly. Now repeat these numbers after me. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Now let's talk about how to form the numbers between 21 and 99. This is where things in German are a bit different from English. In German, for numbers like 21, 22, or 44, you essentially say the numbers backwards. That means you say the units 1, 2, 3 first, and then the tens 20, 30, 40, etc. For example, with the number 58, you say acht first, then 50 comes next. You just add the word und in between, and you've got 58. This same pattern continues for all numbers between 21 and 99. Just remember, you say the units first, then und, and finally the tens. It might take some practice, but you'll get the hang of it. Now, let's go through the numbers from 21 to 29 together. Repeat after me. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. After learning the numbers up to 100, let's now look at how to form large numbers in German. We'll start with the hundreds and then move on to the thousands. To form hundreds in German, you simply take the number for 1, 2, 3, and so on, and add the word 100 for hundred. For example, 100, 200, 300. When adding additional numbers like 101 or 356, you follow the same pattern we've used before. Here are a few examples. 101, 256, 389. Next, let's move on to thousands. To form numbers in the thousands, the pattern is the same. You start with the unit, followed by 1000 for thousand. For example, 1000, 2000, 3000. When forming larger numbers, like 1,234 or 3,567, you combine the hundreds, tens, and units, like before. Here are a few examples. 1,234, 1,234. 2,578, 2578. 3,999, 3,999. As you can see, forming large numbers in German follows the same basic rules. It may seem complicated at first, but just keep practicing, and it will soon become second nature. Now that we've learned how to form large numbers, let's see how to use numbers in everyday situations like talking about the year, Jahreszahlen, and telling time, Uhrzeit. These are both practical ways that numbers are used in German. When talking about years in German, it's quite similar to English. You simply say the number for the year, but there's no special word for year added at the end. Before the year 2000, years are said using hundreds. For example, 1989 is 1989. After 2000, years are spoken using thousands. For example, 2024 is 2024. Next, let's look at how to tell time in German. There are two common ways to say the time. One option is to use the straightforward format, just like in English, where you say the hour and then the minutes. For example, 10 Uhr 45, 10 hours and 45 minutes. 7 Uhr 30, 7 hours and 30 minutes. However, there's also another way to tell time in German using phrases like Viertel vor, quarter to, halb, half past, and 5 Minuten nach, 5 minutes past. We'll cover this in more detail later in the A1 course, with a dedicated lesson on telling time. Alright, let's put what we've learned into practice. You'll see some numbers on the screen, and your task is to say each one out loud in German. I'll give you a few seconds for each, and then we'll check the answer together. Let's get started. Vier, 10, 15, 18, 30, 70, 24, 58, 105, 358, 2021, Fantastic work today! We've covered a lot about numbers in German, from basic counting to larger numbers like hundreds and thousands. Keep practicing these, and they'll soon feel natural in your everyday conversations. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to stay updated on all our lessons in the A1 German course. In our next video, we'll be learning about the months of the year and seasons in German, which are essential for talking about dates, birthdays, and planning activities. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and see you in the next lesson. Macht's gut und bis bald!